This video is an overview of Chapter 13, Adding Software and Hardware. It is not intended to replace reading the chapter or reviewing the presentations. Although there are some good apps to help you become more productive, you may want to also purchase and install a few others. If you have some pre-installed software and aren't using it on your computer, you may want to remove it. If you need to install a new version, most manufacturers recommend uninstalling the old version first. Most programs have a setup utility to assist in installation. Installing programs does the following. It copies the needed files to your hard disks. It makes needed changes to the Windows registry. It adds a shortcut to the Windows Start screen. Most disks have an autorun.inf file that tells Windows how to get started. Some software comes with a single executable file that you may download to get started. Most common way to get an app is to download them from the Windows Store. This chapter is very important in understanding what can happen with installing and removing software, and especially the changes to the Windows registry. Sometimes when you uninstall something, if you don't do it properly, it leaves things in the Windows registry. Sometimes it does that anyway, but it's very important to uninstall properly so that you keep your computer running at its maximum capability. Windows 8 removes references to the program from the registry, deletes the program's files from the hard disk, and removes shortcuts to the program from the start screen, taskbar, and/or desktop. Uninstalling is sometimes less than perfect. It leaves things in the registry that can cause problems. Be careful what you install on your computer, and uninstall from the control panel. So you would go to Control Panel and uninstall a program, or you can also just search for uninstall a program and find it. So it doesn't hurt to look sometimes at what is installed on your computer. To uninstall a Windows 8 app, right-click the item on the start screen and then click uninstall. So this is how you would do one that you had installed on the desktop. And sometimes if you're having problems with your computer, you might sort it by date to see what was the most recent item that was installed, and remove anything that you don't recognize that may have installed accidentally on your computer, either because you did or because someone grabbed your computer and uninstalled it. So if you want to uninstall something on your desktop, you right-click it and choose uninstall. Some older programs do not work right with Windows 8. They can be tricked by using compatibility mode, although not all components will work as they should. Some of us use this so that we can use Explorer for using our online courses. We may run Explorer in compatibility mode so that we will be able to email and do some of the discussions that can't happen occasionally depending on the version of Explorer. As you already know, this course requires or suggests that you use Mozilla Firefox, which is what I always use, because not everything runs in compatibility mode. They can be used in setup utility and in executable and on the executable file that runs the program, and that's for compatibility mode still. You can right-click the executable file of the program and choose Troubleshoot Compatibility. You can also choose Properties, and then the Compatibility tab. You can make these changes after the setup has completed, which is recommended. To get to the executable file, you would have to locate it on your C drive. Some files can be opened in any number of programs. Good examples are web pages that can be opened in any browser, Firefox, Explorer, and Chrome, although we do know that that they all look differently once they're opened in that, and they perform differently. Music is another. Your music in iTunes can be opened in Windows, Media Player, or any third-party music playing software. File extensions determine what program or type of program will open the file. You'll learn how to change the default programs to open the types of extensions. This is an important thing to learn because sometimes these file extensions get changed to a different default program than you actually wanted it to. For instance, if you're not careful, you may find that all your HTML files open up in Explorer when you intended for Mozilla Firefox to be your default program. Some programs automatically start up when your computer is turned on. This is either because they are required to run an essential software or something that runs in the background, such as a messenger program. There are ease of use advantages, but there are also problems with too many programs in the startup, as it takes longer to reboot your computer. These may not be programs that you even use, so it may be a good idea to uncheck or remove them from the startup. This is a very good tip for most of us to keep our computer working as we want it to look in the startup occasionally and see what is in the startup registry, because there are some things that should be removed. You can add a program to the startup easily by placing a shortcut for it in the startup folder. You can also prevent them from starting up by removing the shortcut in the folder. Sometimes this doesn't work if the program itself controls the startup. You can also use the Task Manager to disable. This method doesn't remove the entries from the register, but only disables them. You can get to Task Manager by right-clicking on the Task Manager on the taskbar and choosing Task Manager. And then you would choose Startup tab, the Startup tab. Again, this only disables them. It doesn't actually remove things from the registry, but it at least does stop them from loading in. Updates to software are released fairly often. If it is to fix a problem, it is known as a patch. Many Windows programs and apps automatically update if you set it to do so. The apps updates sometimes are provided when you log in to the store. You want to be sure that you do always at least keep up to date your Windows 8. If you have a crash, it's best that you have at least updated it. Most printers today are plug and play and use a USB device to connect. When you add printers, you are actually adding the device driver. If you have a setup disk, you should use it. If you don't have the disk, but only a driver disk, it is best to allow Windows 8 to prompt you for the driver after you have connected the printer. If you don't have anything, try connecting anyway, as Windows may have the driver. You can also usually download the driver from the manufacturer's website. You'll learn in this chapter the differences in setting up local, network, and Bluetooth printers. If Windows doesn't automatically detect the printer, you can open devices and printers from the control panel. Don't forget to set your printer as the default, even if you only have one printer, but especially if you have more than one in a house or your business. Very important, most of us are purchasing Bluetooth printers or e-prints simply because we want to be able to print from our iPhone or our Samsung Galaxy or our tablets. Disconnecting a printer from its device does not remove the printer driver. You must go through an uninstall to do that. If it is a Bluetooth device, it may cause it to not appear under devices once you've disconnected it. Hardware includes the physical components of the computer, including the keyboard, the mouse, the disk drivers, the CPU, and so on. Each of these devices has its own language with a driver that translates it to Windows. You'll learn terminology in this chapter that pertains to device drivers and hardware. Windows 8 requires the use of signed drivers to ensure that programs are written correctly and have less errors in them. Monitors can have two types of connections, VGA and DVI. It's best to shut down the monitor and the computer before adding a monitor, then connecting the monitor back and restarting Windows. You'll learn about setting resolution, setting the primary monitor, and switching which side each monitor is on so the mouse slides as you want it to. Many of us are working with multiple monitors these days, so this is also a very important section. Also important, if you buy a new laptop and you're wanting to connect to a monitor, you will need to buy an adapter of sorts that will allow you to connect from a VGA monitor. Unless you have an HDMI monitor, you'll need to buy that adapter. End of this video.